50 years ago, I walked out of a hospital, Catholic hospital in Trenton, New Jersey, without my baby. I had just turned 18. And I went on with my life as the priests and nuns told us to do. I never spoke of her, but I never forgot about my daughter. We were joyfully reunited and when she was 37, so that would be almost 13 years ago. I'm happy to say we continue to have a nice relationship. As Daryl says, fear, shame, and guilt kept me in the shadows. I mean, I didn't speak about her. I married my husband. I didn't speak about her for 10 years into my relationship. But thank God society has changed. And we who surrendered our babies to adoption no longer need to be afraid. And those sealed records that are kept hostage by the states need to be unsealed so adoptees can get their identities. In the 3 decades before Roe v. Wade, 1.5 million babies were surrendered to adoption. And we signed an agreement that gave custody and control over our children to, in my case, Catholic Charities, for the full term of their minority. And one would think that that document, once the child becomes of age, that document would no longer have any hold over them, or us for that matter. Now, the relinquishment document that I signed says that I promise not to seek the home of my child, to attempt to remove her, or in any way molest or interfere with the family in which she may be placed. There were other documents that made us promise, or basically that said to us that we were not completely relieved of our obligations for support, education, or maintenance of the child. We consented to the adoption and even signed away our right to be notified of whether or not our child was adopted. Yet there is no mention of confidentiality in this or any other surrender document. But opponents claim that we were promised and legally guaranteed privacy, and that unsealing the records would be breaking that promise. This is not true. When challenged, courts have upheld that birth parents have no constitutional or statutory right to privacy from their own children. When they lost that argument, opponents then said, well, we had an expectation of privacy. And yes, the historical record confirms that we did not want our families and communities knowing the circumstances, of the situation at the time. Not that we wanted to prevent our sons and daughters from later learning our identities. Now, in the past 13 years, I have met countless number of birth parents, and no one promised them confidentiality from their own children. In fact, many agencies told us that when our children became of age, that they could come back, that they would be able to find us. And many moms wrote letters to the agencies giving them change of name, change of addresses. But yet when we went back to the agencies, we found that those letters were not there and they had not been given to our sons and daughters. American Adoption Congress started a petition about 6 weeks ago, and as of last night, 785 birth parents have signed a petition for access. It's been translated into French, it's in Canada, it's in Australia, and it's going out to the hinterland. So if you haven't signed it, birth moms or dads, please go out there and sign it. The thing that we have to remember is that there is a difference between relinquishment and adoption. because the birth certificate and all records are sealed not upon relinquishment, but upon the adoption. So if a child languishes in foster care or even dies, that record is never sealed. And the record could always be opened for good cause. So how could confidentiality ever have been promised to birth parents? When my daughter and I were reunited, her adoptive father told me he always knew my name. And a New York Citizens Coalition for Children and a Cornell University study back in the 90s surveyed 1,274 adoptive parents, and they found that 40% of adoptees knew their birth name. And you can say, how can that be? Well, it was either given to the adoptive parents at the time of the adoption, or it was left on the adoption decree. Again, there cannot be confidentiality for birth parents. Now, several studies say that 90 to 95% of us welcome some form of contact from our children. And in states that have unsealed records in the past decade, I've calculated to be about approximately 1 in 2,000 birth parents have asked for no contact from their surrendered child. We're talking minuscule numbers. Even Irish Catholic bishops support an adopted person's right to know their identity. In 2001, they submitted a paper to a conference that said every child has an identity, has a right to their identity of origin. That is to know who are his or her parents. The context was about assisted human reproduction, but they acknowledged that this is increasingly recognized in the management of adoption. And some states have a certificate of parentage, like New Jersey does, affirming that every child has the right to know who his or her mother or father is and benefit from a relationship with them. It's for fathers who want their names on the birth certificate. So if the state is supportive of today's children having their information and knowing their fathers, how can they not support an adult adopted person to know their heritage? Again, as Vinny has said, this is a human rights issue. And in New Jersey, it's 31 years in 2011. I calculated as of Monday, it will be about 11,304 days that this legislation has been before the New Jersey legislature. And it has evolved over time. And it has evolved because of the strong opposition from the Catholic Conference of Bishops, from the Right to Life, from the Bar Association, ACLU, and the National Council for Adoption. It's not a perfect bill, but it's a bill that will pass in New Jersey and hopefully be signed by our governor. It's time to restore the rights of adult adoptees to their information.